Hello everyone, welcome back. In this tutorial, let's look at different type of Angular directives. So there are three possible directives in Angular. So the first one is a component based directive. So component itself is a special directive in Angular. It will have a template or template URL which will manipulate the DOM on the browser. So for that reason, this is one of the um, specialized directive in Angular. The second directive is structural directive. So basically, this will also manipulate the DOM, but it is not at a total the component itself. It is at the specific piece of the component, like iterating a specific list of elements or um, updating some of the values in the specific form or something like that. And these structural directive examples are ng if or Angular 17 version it is @if or ng for or Angular 17 version of @for. So which will add certain things to the DOM and which will remove certain things from the DOM within the component. So this is one type of special directive which is called as structural directive. So the third type of directive is attribute level directive. It's attribute directive. So the component directive is at the complete component level, which is almost at the piece of the page, and structural directive is at the specific portion of the component which will manipulate, and attribute directive is going to be applied at the specific HTML element level, and it will change the appearance or behavior of an HTML element. And for example, ng style or ng class which will apply to a specific HTML element. So now let's understand component level directive. Okay, so right now I just have a plain application. Other than the title, there is nothing. Okay, so to understand component level directive, let's create component child. Okay, within the component, let's go and see what we have in the component. Okay, so @component, and there is a selector and the template. So a directive is something which will update or manipulate or add some additional feature to the existing HTML element. Okay, so right now so we have child works here. Okay, now let's include this component app child in the parent component. Now if you see, there is a child component, okay, which is manipulating the current DOM. Okay, this is rendered onto the browser DOM. This is browser DOM, right? So it is rendered onto the browser DOM. That means it is a specialized directive which is manipulating the DOM. Okay, so in the current browser DOM, so child component came and it rendered this particular string. Okay, this is one of the type of directive, a directive which is component which will have a template, and it will be rendered onto the browser. So since it is rendered onto the browser, it is manipulating the DOM. Okay, so this second type of directive is at the structural directive. Okay, let's understand what is structural directive with an example. Okay, right now I'm adding states list. Okay, Texas, California, Okay, I added 4 states. Instead of this, let's change it to a object instead of plain array. So let's change it to id, which is 1, name, which is Texas, three, 4, put it here, here, and Jersey, let me add here. So I have 4 records with the states. Now let's add for loop for this, which is Angular 17 type of for loop. State of states list, track by state.id. So I think track, we don't need track by. Okay, else just say no states found. Oh, sorry, not else, it should be empty. Okay, and within this, what we will do is we'll just print state.id state.name. Is it a name? Yeah, state.name. Okay, now let's see. So right now this particular content, okay, let me just push it to center. I just wanted to push this to center. Let me just add two, 3, 4. So now these 4 are rendered onto the UI, onto the DOM, and it is manipulating. Okay, this is the structural directive which will manipulate the DOM or updating the DOM or removing the DOM. In this case, we are adding these records to the DOM using ngFor, which is of structural directive. Which this is special type of directive. It is iterating and updating the records to the DOM. That means it is manipulating the DOM, and it is one more type of directive which is of structural. Okay, so now let's look at attribute level directive. Okay, let me just remove this, and we'll add a span tag. Okay, I'll say Okay, so right now let me add a attribute directive, ng generate directive, I'll say movie. Okay, now let's go to movie directive, app movie. Let me just append here, and within the movie directive it will basically get hold of the actual element, and it should be element reference. So this element, wherever we use this particular directive, it will get that current HTML element. Okay, since I used it here, it will get hold of this particular span tag. Okay, into when the application runs, when this particular span tag is rendering onto the browser DOM, it will look for this directive and it will go to this. Okay, before even rendering this whole string, this whole span tag, because of this it will first go to the directive. Okay, and whatever is implemented in this, it will take that complete content, then it will render onto the browser. Okay, now what we will do is, here I'll just append some text here using the renderer. Without having renderer, you cannot create a text or append something, okay, to the browser DOM. What I'll do is, Bahubali is my favorite movie. I wanted to set that. So using the renderer, I'll append a child to, I'll append this particular child to this element with this text. Okay, what it does is, it will take this particular element and it will append this particular string and it will display. Okay, let's try to understand. When we actually load this page HTML template to the browser DOM, if there is nothing like, if we don't have this app movie, it will automatically render without any headache. Since this particular directive is there, before even rendering this span tag, it will go to its directive constructor. Okay, it will go based on this name. See, this name should match, and constructor is always called when we actually create that specific directive. Okay, it will get hold of that specific element, which is span element. Okay, and renderer is a specific Angular feature which will get hold of the DOM and manipulate or update or remove things. Okay, for that reason we created a specific text using the renderer, and using that renderer we are appending this text to this element. So along with this, we have to set it to the native element. Okay, so now if you see, Bahubali is my favorite movie. So now this particular Bahubali string appended to this particular text as a, and it is one of the third directive, which is attribute level directive.